Oversupporting certain decks or particular archetype has always been the big issue in almost every TCG decks. You have Yu-Gi-Oh! With Dark archetype or the Dragon archetype. You have V-Cross with essentially anything that related to Tama. And then we have Vanguard. Vanguard has been in a lot of hot water for the fact that they like to overemphasize on some of the particular clans or archetypes. And for the D format right now, that particular archetype is Final Rush, aka Bruce. For those who are not aware, recently before the release of the BTO3, a particular blog post has been posted by one of the most well-known Japanese player of Vanguard. And one of the issues that he addresses in the Overdress format is regarding over-supporting Bruce. So that makes me thinking, why Bushiroad would want to support Bruce so much to an, I would say, yandere level, like unhealthy level of supports, and that's what we're gonna be discussing today. So let's start off by addressing the elephant in the room when it comes to the problem with Bruce himself. And he is not a very good boss monster in my opinion. And the reason is that he only does two things. One is enable Final Rush, which is quite important. And the second effect, which is a restand effect, in my opinion, is actually the problem. The fact that you require to Soul Blast 5 every single turn to make use of his effect, that's actually pretty heavy cost. You can see a lot of other bright lines that does a very similar things at a much lower cost, and it does a lot better, like Baromagnes with his multi-attack that gives power, Magnolia enable back row attack with more power, Bastion with multi-attack that does give the power as well. There is a lot of unit that does multi-attacks and does it for much cheaper and much better than Bruce. So what does Bushiroad do to fix the issue? Well, just give them a really strong support. And it really shows in the recent booster from Leonard and Dober from BTO2 and Derek and Pandemonium Tactics in BTO3. These supports, specifically Leonard, sparks a lot of arguments in the community whether does Leonard came out too early or too late. And in my opinion, for me, it is just right.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
You see, the biggest problem with Bruce is that you need to maintain resource consistently all the time to make use of his restanding effects, and Leonard, in my opinion, is the biggest solution to that. He does a lot of things, the best form of removal, he does soul charge, and he does call unit to the field, which allow Bruce to do a setup much quicker. And then BTO3 came along with Derek and Pandemonium Tactics, which these two cards does encourage the players to play a different style of Bruce, which is a soul shard build Bruce. However, it doesn't completely separate the original build of Bruce away completely, and that's the reason that a lot of people were having problem with. These supports happen to work too well with each other. On top of the fact that now we are going with nation-based support for every few months, which means that the update frequency of Final Rush is getting more frequent and frequent compared to V and G series, where the support is done based on clans. So, is there a way to fix this issue with Bruce? And the answer is yes and no. The solution that I'll be proposing does have its perks and its consequences. The first one being overbuffing the other right line. Well, doesn't need to be overbuffed, but just buff other right line enough to be on the same level playfield as Bruce, aka a good rearguard supports. And a good example for the right line that needs a good rearguard right now is Baromagnes. Like, okay, I know I'm a Baromagnes stan, but Baromagnes really need to get a good rearguard already. It has been beat 3 boosters. However, overbuffing the other right line will just simply lead to power creep, and we have seen with V Apocalypse before, with Luat and everything. So I hope that Bushiroad doesn't go this route. The second solution that I have right now is that slow down Bruce support. And I know that BTO4 they are releasing new form of Bruce, but I think after that it's a good time for Bruce to take a little bit of a break. And when I say break, I mean just slow down the support in a sense that you still give them out new support, but just don't need to make it so broken like Leonard and Derek. However, this solution also shared a similar issue with the first solution, and that it might lead to power creep by the other right lines. I'm aware that power balancing is one of the hardest things to do when it comes to game development, regardless of being digital or physical. And I do think that this is something that we can only rely on Bushiroad development team, so them to really balance out these right lines. The last solution that I have is some form of restriction on Bruce in the terms of deck building. Something like Norman with Luard and Gurgut with Percival in V-Series. This helps to slow down the speed of the deck at the same time power level, but not to an extent that the deck became unplayable. And if you ask me what kind of restriction I want to implement that, then it's very simple. Restrict Soul Charge build Bruce away from its original style, which is with Leonard and everything. So make Soul Charge Bruce its own thing, make Rush Bruce, the one that we play normally, its own thing. And I think that way there is a definite power drop in Bruce, but not to an extent that it is unplayable. At the end of the day, it is inevitable for Bruce to receive a good support due to how resource hungry he is as a boss unit. And this is a trend that we'll be keep seeing unless the new support of Bruce, his new form in particular, has a good effect to an extent that he doesn't need his regard as much as before. And that is all I have for today. What do you guys think of Bruce's dilemma as a unit? Leave it down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this kind of content, don't forget to like and share this video, and of course, hit the subscribe button and the bell button to keep up with my notification. And this really helps as it boosts my algorithm and you got a chance to share your opinion. So in my opinion, it's a fair trade. And that is all I have for today. This is Mac Megane, signing out.